Welcome to the Fluent English podcast. Hope all are doing great. Today we will talk about the history of airplanes. Since the dawn of time, humans have gazed at the skies, dreaming of flight. From ancient myths to daring inventions, the quest to soar has been an enduring story of ambition, innovation, and perseverance.
In this episode, we'll take you on a journey through the history of the aeroplane, from the first powered flight in 1903 to the modern jets that connect our world today. We'll uncover the stories of brilliant pioneers, the challenges they faced, and the groundbreaking advancements that made flight a reality for millions. Join us as we explore the history of aviation, celebrating the achievements that have shaped the skies we now navigate with ease.
It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, just imagine the world without airplanes. No international vacations, no business flights, no global supply chain. Everything would look so different.
Totally. It's amazing to think that just over a century ago, humans were still dreaming of flying, and now we're flying faster than the speed of sound. But where did it all begin?
Well, let's rewind to the late 19th century. Aviation was mostly about dreams and theories. People like Leonardo da Vinci, who sketched his ideas for flying machines centuries before, had visions of human flight. But it wasn't until the 19th century that we really started to see real progress.
Yeah, and it was a time of experimentation. In fact, before the Wright brothers, there were several inventors who tried and failed to create flying machines. We had pioneers like Samuel Langley, a professor at the Smithsonian Institution, who built an aircraft called the aerodrome.
Right. But his plane couldn't fly, and in 1903, Langley's aerodrome crashed into the Potomac River during a test flight. That was a significant setback.
Which brings us to the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur. In December of 1903, they made history at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, when they achieved the first controlled, sustained flight of a heavier-than-air, powered aircraft. Their plane, the Wright Flyer, flew for just 12 seconds, but it was a monumental moment.
12 seconds. That doesn't sound like much, but it changed the world forever. And what's even more amazing is that the Wright brothers were not trained engineers or pilots, just two guys who understood the principles of flight and were deeply passionate about making it happen.
Exactly. Their success wasn't just about building an airplane, it was about perfecting control mechanisms. Before them, people could build machines that would lift off, but they couldn't control them. The Wright brothers figured out how to control the aircraft in 3 axes: pitch, roll, and yaw. They essentially laid the groundwork for modern aviation.
And after that, the world was off to the races. The next few decades saw huge advancements. By World War I, airplanes were used for combat, and they started to be recognized for their strategic importance.
Yes, the war accelerated technological innovation. Airplanes like the Sopwith Camel and the Fokker Doctor were used in dogfights, pushing engineers to improve their designs quickly. Then, in the 1920s, aviation was starting to be viewed as a commercial enterprise.
This is when we get the golden age of aviation. Charles Lindbergh made his famous solo flight across the Atlantic in 1927. The Spirit of St. Louis took off from Roosevelt Field in New York and landed in Paris, 33.5 hours later. It was a feat of both aviation skill and endurance, and it captivated the entire world.
And don't forget Amelia Earhart. In 1932, she became the first woman to fly solo non-stop across the Atlantic. She helped push the boundaries of what was possible and inspired generations of women to pursue careers in aviation and science.
Absolutely. And by the 1930s and 40s, air travel was becoming more accessible. The development of larger passenger planes like the Douglas DC-3 changed the way people traveled. Airliners became a symbol of modernity.
Then, in the 1950s, we saw the first commercial jet airliner, the de Havilland Comet and the Boeing 707. These jets could carry dozens of passengers and cross continents in just hours. Suddenly, travel was faster, and the world seemed smaller.
And here's where it gets really fascinating. The 20th century brought us the supersonic age. In the 1960s, the Concorde made its first flight. This was a jet that could break the sound barrier, flying at speeds over twice the speed of sound, or Mach 2. This opened up the possibility of transatlantic flights in just a few hours.
The Concorde was such an iconic symbol of aviation, though it was only in service for about 27 years. It was retired in 2003 due to issues like high operating costs, but it remains a symbol of aviation's potential for high-speed, long-distance travel.
And we can't forget the influence of the space race. The advancements in rocket and jet propulsion during the 1960s and beyond have had huge impacts on aviation technology, especially in terms of materials and design.
And now, we're seeing the future of aviation unfolding with things like electric planes, drones, and even the possibility of commercial space travel with companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin.
It's truly mind-blowing to think how far we've come in such a short period of time. What started with the Wright brothers' 12-second flight is now part of a global network of air travel that connects people across continents in just hours. Who knows what the next century holds?
Right? Maybe one day we'll all be flying in electric planes or taking vacations on Mars. But for now, let's appreciate the incredible journey aviation has taken, and the incredible people who made it happen.
Absolutely. And that's all for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed this dive into the history of the aeroplane. From the Wright brothers to commercial jets, the history of flight is filled with amazing stories and pioneering spirit.
Thanks for listening. Until then, keep flying high. Happy listening all.